I just want to thank everybody for being here again. So the first 2,000 days, first of all, I have to give a lot of credit to Helene Dufour and her team bringing their knowledge of the first 2,000 days and the research behind it to many of the tables that are sitting here today. So it's very relevant to what we have been doing and are doing. So the first 2,000 days spans from conception to age 6, and early experiences at this time really affect the quality of the architecture of the brain. So actually 90% of our brain development happens during this time period. So that's a huge chunk of our brain that gets developed really in these very early years, especially age 1. That 1 year from 0 to age 1 is hugely important. You're developing your sensory pathways, your language, your high cognitive functions, and it's really creating the base of which you grow from. And it definitely affects our future health and how ultimately it's the foundation for prosperous society and really a sustainable society in terms of healthy human beings coming together. And definitely beyond that, when we say the first 2,000 days and beyond, there is another time in child development, actually in youth development in the teens, where your brain does another big developing portion. Sorry, that's not quite the way to describe it, but it is a time when you can course correct maybe some of the things that may not have been the best developing time earlier. There is another opportunity for that. So the 3 pillars that we're talking about over the next 2 days are, one is early learning, and it's basically about quality opportunities, focusing on stable, responsive parent relationships, and it's on healthy attachments, as well as stimulating environments, whether that be at home, in childcare situations, in public school system. Opportunities for play are really, really important during this time. And then protection from trauma. We really want to make sure that we're ensuring a safe and secure home that's got an environment that's free from adverse experiences, with a focus on parental empowerment and nurturing. And then nutrition and food security, definitely the proper nutrition during pregnancy and early childhood is crucial for optimal growth and development. It's actually proper nutrition that can result in the proper growth, reduction of risk of disease, and allow for optimal development. So this comes from a lot of research. I'll actually quote the Lancet report, where a lot of this information came from in 2016, and it's to promote health and well-being across the life course at scale requires interventions provided through several sectors and a supportive environment of policies, cross-sectoral coordination, and financing. And at the heart of this intervention is the nurturing care of young children. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a idea of where we're coming from and what we're talking about. And between Helene and I, hopefully we can answer any questions you have about that. Thanks, Hans.
To know kind of the basis for those 3 pillars. It was almost 2 years ago now that my colleague Taryn Coates and I started looking at all the evidence emerging, the new evidence emerging about brain and those 3 pillars, and how important they all needed to be. And also what we learned is that they needed to all happen at once. and that it was very difficult for me to answer the poll and make a choice. I decided to answer the poll in the way that I can contribute rather than saying that nutrition is more important than everything else. I do really believe that, and the evidence is really showing that we need to address all three for all children at all times during that period, as much as we can. And as a community, I think, we have the ability, especially with all our different expertise, to actually be able to work together to have that collective impact, because we can't do all three all the time. But in our work, we can actually incorporate all three. And so Taryn is a community dental hygienist, and myself being a dietitian, we felt we were working in silos often in our own kind of expertise, fields that we worked in. And we wanted to change that and really working with our partners to address all three and be mindful of all three when we work. And then we're grateful to actually have a student joined us who was doing her master's degree in public health and was fascinated with all the new evidence and wanted to help us be able to measure as a community how we are doing the work. So she worked in Parksville all summer and actually worked with the tables, so BLT, the LAT, both specially, together with also many partners. And I see all your faces, and I know many of you met Zoe. She did a fabulous job and actually put together an inventory tool, so that this tool will allow us to be able to look at the community, see how our strengths are doing, and perhaps acknowledge our gaps, and try to meet the goal of that collective impact for the biggest impact on the health of our children. So you all had the link to a survey called the Inventory Tool. And I was very grateful for the 14 of you to have filled it out. And what I would really like to do is to actually be able to fill it out if you haven't done it already, so that I actually can report on it next time. So Judy, you say there was a question?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions coming in here. First of all, Helen, thank you. And we are hearing that from the chat space, other folks are struggle with how to pick one in particular. And that there were some folks that they couldn't use the poll, but cast their vote for nutrition as well. And so one of the things that the questions that's come up is at what point in teen years is this important?
So actually, the brain grows even into our adulthood. What happens is that Judy talked to those two very critical periods. One is that the first 2 years of life, and then still through all the way to 6 years. After that, it's still very much growing, and you could still kind of do more positive support and then change the trajectory for children after that. But at around the teen years, when we're looking at about 13 years of age to 20, is kind of where we're actually looking at another time where it's actually the prefrontal cortex that's getting developed, and decision making is happening, so that we can have positive influences on all health aspects of life, and that teens are able to actually make healthy decisions. Ultimately, that's kind of what we want to see, to become healthy adults and contributing to the community in a healthy way. Is kind of that biggest piece, but then after that, it's still happening. And even in adulthood, it's just what we see is brain is quite flexible. It just requires more effort as we get older. So even as we are, in our older ages, you still can change your brain. It just requires more effort.
Terrific. Helen, you had mentioned that in your experience that there was a natural gravitation toward working in silos that not only potentially separated these pillars from one another, but also separated you from other folks doing this type of work in the community. And that you were mindful of being able to incorporate all three pillars at the same time. What was successful for you and your team on how to do that?
So I think one of the biggest things for us was that we had the ability to link with our partners, that we were already sitting at the tables like BLT, and to like for BLT at that table, we were actually able to learn a lot about early learning and play and attachment and all of the pieces that we look at around that pillar. So that was very helpful for us. And as well with the LAT, it was another table where I could meet with all my community partners that were really focusing on trauma and the effect of trauma. So in that way, we were able to, and because I think it is important, all of us have a bit of a specialty in what we do. And when we sit at a table, we don't want to just have one hat, right? Like if we really truly want to have a collective impact and make change and tip the scale. I think the evidence is showing UNICEF, World Health Organization, University of Harvard have researched this, and they say, the only way we can actually do tip the scale is to work together and stop wearing only one hat. So when I sit at a table, I just don't want people to just see me as the dietitian, right? I'm only talking about food. That's not what I want to be. I want to be able to offer that expertise, but also contribute to the rest of the conversation about these other two pillars, definitely.
Rosalinda Bose from Child and Youth Mental Health, and I co-chair, at least for this year and last year. And we did start off with a focus on early childhood. We switched somewhat midway through to more youth focused, but I must say, Helene, being on the LAT and bringing the information of the first 2,000 days has had a huge impact on us. And we revisited our mission and vision. And our mission is at this point to collaboratively promote well-being by cultivating learning about healthy childhood development, and by fostering compassionate responses to those impacted by trauma. And I would say the LAT's focus on adverse childhood experiences and trauma-informed community has been the foundation. And the first 2,000 days has really brought us back to the absolute importance of early support for families and for children. So we have quite a wide membership, many of whom sit on the other tables as well. But I'm grateful for everyone that does sit on the LAT and brings their own information and expertise. And there is the terms of reference are on the RDN website under the first 2,000 days. Thank you.